Hey, this is Dr. C. Thank you for joining me today. It's been almost 5 years since we've talked about COVID. I'm sure you don't remember, but both Dr. Jane Lockery and I were here talking about COVID back then, and it's totally different conversation now, obviously, 5 years later. But we need to have an update. We need an update on COVID. So I thought I'd give a little update on that and what vaccines will be available this fall, and should you get a vaccine this fall. Okay, a lot to talk about. Let's start out with just COVID itself. Now, COVID, back in December of 2019, that's when the COVID started in Wuhan, China. And the species that was identified back then was called the L strain. I don't know why, but it was just called the L strain. Since that time, because of mutations and all that have occurred, many mutations, changes in that RNA have occurred. Some of them were significant. Now, when I say significant, I'm going by what the World Health Organization says about the variants of the COVID virus that can occur. You could have a variant of interest. It's different, that's all. It's different, needs to be on the chart, but we don't need to monitor it. And then it could be a variant of concern, because there's something in that mutation that made the virus either more transmissible or whatever. So it's of concern, but still not monitoring it yet. And then there was the variant that required monitoring. We in the United States have seen several of those that required monitoring. World Health Organization uses the Greek alphabet to define some of these variants of concern. And they use it for a definite reason. They want to have a common language so that everybody is talking about a particular variant, all with the same moniker, I guess you might say. So we use it for communication, and the World Health Organization is the one that developed that. So we've gone through alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We've gone through a number of different variants. Now, the Delta variant was a big deal. Delta variant was the very first one that significantly changed and caused an increase in mortality. It was much more transmissible, much more deadly, you might say. So that was the Delta variant. Then, in about the spring of 2022, we had the Omicron variant, and we're still in that Omicron era, because all of the variants and subvariants and all that have occurred are all of that original Omicron variant. And so that's where we are at present. Will we be there 6 months from now? Who knows? Who knows? So, at any rate, now we have what's called a nimbus. Now, a lot of these variants get labeled with a name. Not just the AB variants, but they call it a name, and they the reporters love the names. The weirder the name, they love it. Put it out there. Okay. So Nimbus is out there now. Roughly 43% of all of the cases, new cases that people get of COVID, are of the Nimbus variety. That means that people are still dying of COVID, still being hospitalized with COVID. Fortunately, most of the more recent variants are not as serious as the ones before. Of course, if you get pneumonia, that's serious. That's serious. But nevertheless, I'm talking to the seniors. The ones who are hospitalized and dying are usually over 65. Yes. Now, from October to December, there were over 30,000 deaths from COVID in the United States. 30,000. That's not a small number. But because they're so old, they don't care. At least nobody seems to care that much. So 30,000 is a big number. And so what should we do about it? Well, the present one, Nimbus, is called the razor blade variant because the sore throat feels like you're swallowing a razor blade. So that's the characteristic of that present variant of COVID. Does the vaccine cover it? Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the vaccines now. There's a lot of confusion now, which I guess originates with our federal government, propagated by the press. Where are we situated with regard to treating COVID? Should you get a vaccine? Right now, people are still in a quandary. We don't know, based on the material that's given to us by the federal government and propagated by the media. What are the things that are raising these issues? Well, first of all, our CDC, our wonderful CDC. First of all, they declared COVID no longer an epidemic. Well, wonderful. But what do the health insurers do? They raise their arms. Wonderful. Now we don't have to cover all that crap with the COVID. Oh, that's the United States. That's the capitalist way, isn't it? It is the capitalist way. So not only did the CDC do that, they said, well, no longer an epidemic. We're not going to cover tests anymore. And again, the insurers raise their arms. Yes, yes. Oh, man. But that's not all. The CDC then said, we're going to remove from the COVID-19 vaccine from the immunization schedule. That means, and again, the insurers, wonderful. That means you may have to pay for it. $200 a shot. Yes. No wonder the insurers are jumping for joy. I just read in the paper yesterday that for 2026 in Massachusetts, the insurers are going to be allowed to increase the cost of the premiums. For example, I'm with Tufts Healthcare. It's increasing 11% for 2026. And hey, the insurer, the state government that monitors all these insurance companies said, that's fine, 11% is good. And they rejected Blue Cross Blue Shield, who wanted to raise their premium by 16%. It's terrible. Absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. So, again, I'm getting off the subject. So, getting back to the subject again, the FDA and the CDC. Wonderful group. So, CDC not only did that, but they also said you don't have to get the children under 18 and pregnant women, and in fact, even younger adults up to age 60, you don't have to get a vaccine. It's up to you. And again, the insurers, yes. Oh, man. 3 days after, that was in May, 3 days later, the same CDC says, well, we're going to back off a little bit, and it needs to be a shared decision whether you get a vaccine or not. A shared decision between patient and doctor. Isn't that something? Well, where are we now? Insurers are still rattling the cages. They're having fun, raising the prices. Oh, man. So, 3 days after that, the ACIP, that is that committee that oversees and approves a lot of the stuff for the CDC. 17 members, all fired. Robert Kennedy fired them, 17 of them, appointed 8 more. And so, again, where are we now? Where are we? Let's talk a little bit. I wanted to talk about what's going to be available this fall for shots. Okay, let's talk about all of the respiratory viruses that are out there in the fall and in the winter. First, let's talk simple. RSV, respiratory syncytial virus. If you got a shot last year, you're covered. You don't have to get one this year. They say 2 years. That's BS. They don't know. Probably going to be covered for a number of years. So don't worry if you already had your shot. GlaxoSmithKline is the one that promotes that. Of course, Moderna has theirs, and of course, Pfizer as well. Respiratory syncytial virus is still a significant viral illness, and it predominantly hits the very young infants, under a year and all, causes bronchiolitis, and over 75. So basically, people over 75 are recommended to get the RSV vaccine. The one downside to the RSV is the presence of a side effect, Guillain-Barré. Now, Guillain-Barré is when the virus attacks the spinal cord at a particular level, called a transverse myelitis. You're paralyzed from that point down. So the only one that doesn't cause that is the Moderna RSV. Okay, that's the first one. Let's talk about the flu. Kind of routine. Everybody gets their flu vaccine every year, you know, and basically it's based on the variants of the flu that are predicted to be in circulation at the time. Okay. And there's a number of companies that make it. Some of it grow it on eggs. That was the traditional way of growing that vaccine. growing it on eggs. Some people who are egg sensitive would prefer not to get the egg-grown virus. Generally, the virus or the vaccine that's out on the market, so grown on eggs, is called Fluzone. Fluzone. Now, the Fluzone comes in a regular dose and it comes in a high dose. Now, the high dose has 4 times the amount of antigen, that is the virus, 4 times the amount than the regular dose. That will be available again this year. Trivalent vaccine for flu. So that is Fluzone. It covers 2A's and 1B, the ones that are predicted to be the most likely to be around. There's also a flu vaccine called Fluad. Fluad. And that you, instead of increasing the dose by 4 times the antigen, they use an adjuvant. They use squalene oil, which increases the efficiency of the vaccine itself. So Fluad may be the one that you get this year. Who knows? What else is available? Well, there's also one called Flublok. That uses what's called a recombinant. It's a recombinant vaccine. No egg involved. It's grown on a cell medium. Or it may be grown on things that are made in the laboratory itself. It's called recombinant because they break apart some of the spike proteins and then rejoin them again. That's called recombinant. That's why they call it that. And so that will be available on the market as well. So that's called Flublok. Flublok. There's several that are in the pipeline as well. There's also a nasal vaccine. Now, that's been approved in some countries, but not in the United States as yet, but you can get it in the United States. That itself is expensive. Most of the insurers don't cover the nasal vaccine for flu. Most of them don't cover that. So, at any rate, the nasal itself is probably a very smart idea because the flu gets in through the lining of the respiratory tree. And so it attacks at that level, prevents the virus from getting in the first place. So it's a good idea, but right now, a very expensive idea. It's called Neffy, N-E-F-F-Y, Neffy. Okay, so let's go on from there. There's also a little dissolvable film that you can put under your tongue that has the vaccine in it. Not approved as yet. Neffy has been approved, but not the film that you put in your mouth. It is in phase 3, so it'll probably be available next year, most likely. There's also a combination, flu and COVID. Now, the combination vaccine has had good results from a phase 3 study, 8,000 people, and very effective, but still not approved as yet. Question whether it'll be approved this year or not for the fall. So, combination of flu and COVID. There's also, you can't leave good old Moderna and Pfizer out of it. They've got mRNA vaccines that are in the study phases. Both of them now are in phase 3. So it may be that we're going to have those available in the distant future as well. But who knows? Who knows? Okay. So those are the flu vaccines. Now, what about COVID? What about COVID? We've got a number of COVIDs that are available in the fall. Of course, we'll start with the Pfizer and Moderna, the first ones. The Pfizer vaccine is called Comirnaty, and the Moderna Spikevax. And they, again, will be available. Trivalent will be available. Okay. And additionally, there's been approval of a low dose vaccine, mNEX Spike. Obviously, it's related to Spikevax, the Moderna, produced by Moderna, and it's a low dose, 1/5 of the dose, actually, of the regular vaccine. So it is an mRNA and much lower dose. Still get the same effect, almost the same effect, and the same side effects. So that will be available in the fall as well. And of course, we also have Novavax. And Novavax does not use the mRNA. They use protein subunits, pieces of protein off of that spike, the spike on the COVID. So that is a little different, but it is available as well. So that is what's out there. Question is now, as we said at the beginning, should you get it? Well, first of all, we talked about the RSV, but what about the flu? Should you get the flu vaccine? It's exactly the same composition as it was last year. Exactly the same. Well, shouldn't last year's shot cover you for this year? Oh, no. You need to get your antibodies up. Well, they never, ever talk about memory cells. Why do you think that people who get measles vaccine, those first 2 measles vaccines that you get, and it covers you for life? Well, how come the flu doesn't cover you for life? No, they don't answer that. No, don't. We don't need to get into that. Okay, that's fine. But it is a reality that we have memory cells. As soon as you get exposed to the antigen, the virus antigen, all of a sudden you get an increase in the lymphocytes, T lymphocyte cells, the memory cells. They stimulate production of the B lymphocytes, and the B lymphocytes produce that antibody. Yes, it may take a week or 2 to get it up there, but it's still active. For how many years? I don't know, but it is active for years. Let me put it that way. Okay, so that is one thing to think about. For the COVID vaccine, we talked about the flu. Let's talk about the COVID vaccine. COVID vaccine has to be, at least that's what the CDC said, it has to be at least related to the particular strain, or at least the ancestor's strain related to the JP1 variety, the variant. And so the present one that's out there, as I had mentioned, the present one is still an Omicron variant, and it is of this in the descent line of that JP. So, are we covered? Yeah, we are. Do our memory cells work? Hell yes, they work, unless you're immunocompromised. Let me talk for a moment about who is immunocompromised. Well, I can tell you exactly all of the ones who are immunocompromised. if you've had HIV, if you've had cancer and cancer treatment, if you're taking medication because you've had a transplant, if you've never been vaccinated, if you're living in a communal environment like a nursing home or in a jail, whatever, or if you have multiple health conditions, chronic health conditions like diabetes, very important. So if you're immunocompromised, my tendency is to go ahead and get the vaccine. So, but if you're not, like me, should I rely on my memory cells? I'm not going to tell people to get it or not get it. It's not why I'm here. But I am telling you all of the misinformation that's generated by the manufacturers of those vaccines, propagated by our useless federal agencies and by our useless media. So that is why I'm talking to you about it. So, okay. That gets me going, doesn't it? It gets the old ball rolling. Okay. If you have any other questions, Dr. C is always available to answer them for you as well. So please give a call in to the station and all. I'd be happy to answer all your questions because you're not going to get them from the media. And you're certainly not going to get them from the U.S. government. Okay, Dr. C, have a nice day.